System 76, Pop! OS 24.04 beta has finally dropped. Let's have a look and see what's new. Last year, September 25th, 2024, the System 76 team announced their upcoming new Pop! OS 24.04 distro. And finally today, after a whole year, we finally get the beta release. Let's take a look and find out what the development team has cooked up this time around. Hopefully we get some new features, bug improvements, anything that can make this distro better, even better than what it already is. A few months ago, probably about a month ago, I tried the Alpha 7 release and I was very impressed. I used it on my main machine for about a month. The only issue I was having, as always, with everything, NVIDIA card, it was messing up my monitor setup. And so I was on Pop! OS Alpha 7 with the Cosmic Desktop, and then I reverted back to Pop! OS 22.02 that still uses the GNOME desktop. So I must admit, Alpha 7 really impressed me. I'm really hoping that beta is even better. Let's just go ahead and have a look over. We're gonna start with the installer, see if it looks the same as before, and then we're gonna go through the welcome screen and just have a quick look around some of the new features they got going on. Let's get started. So here we have Pop! OS 24.04 beta, the installer. As we can see, the installer is pretty much the same. There's not going to be any changes on the way the installer looks. If we take a look right here, the first thing that comes up with the installer is the select your language. And right immediately, the next option is select your country. Right after that, you can select your keyboard layout. Everything's the same. Everything's the same as the previous installer. If anything, some tweaks on the animations, on the pictures, obviously performance. The next thing you got over here is allows you to select your installation drive and where you want to install Pop! OS. If you want to install it, as you can see at the very bottom, it has an option where you can pick if you just want to demo Pop! OS. So you don't really have to install it if you don't want to, especially right now there's been a beta release. You can always just test it out and see what kind of performance you get on your computer. The next thing you can do, you can see is you can create a user. If you decided to go with the installation, go ahead and create a user. That's your first option right here. Pick your password, all the same as before. I do notice that the images are different than previous ones, if I'm not mistaken. And the last step, finally, the installation begins. If you notice the clock on the pictures, I started the installation 10:39, and by the time it was 10:40, the installation finished, which means that it took me longer to go through the steps right before the installation process starts than for the installation process to finish. That was very quick, and I'm very impressed with 24.04 and the Cosmic Desktop. This is excellent work, and congratulations go out to the System 76 team. Okay, so we're done with the installation. I'm gonna restart this computer, and then we're gonna go through the welcome screen and check out all the new changes that they implemented into the alpha release. So here we are at the welcome screen. From what I remember, Alpha 7's welcome screen was different. They have implemented some changes here. So let's go through it real quick and see what some of the new implementations they've done. The very first thing we notice is at the welcome screen, they have their accessibility menu. For those of us who happen to use some of these features, I personally use the increase font option, even more so when I'm not using my monitor. Usually if I'm on the laptop itself, because I have a workstation, it has a pretty crappy 1080p display. I have to increase the size of the fonts. So I really like that this is the very first thing they address For a lot of us that have, vision problems or other related issues, we can definitely benefit from this. The very next thing is your option to get connected. I am on an Ethernet at the moment because I'm using my external monitor, so I don't have the need to connect my Wi-Fi. But over here you have that option to toggle the Wi-Fi option and get connected, whichever way is best for you. You have both options to get connected. Moving on to the next thing, you have the option to select your language. Very straightforward, nothing complicated about that. So let's keep going to the next thing. This next part of the welcome screen is actually something that has been recently implemented. From what I remember from Alpha 7, this was not included in the welcome screen. This is your personalized appearance option. It gives you a way to see the way the new Cosmic themes are going to work. And I'm really excited that they put it at the welcome screen, because with Alpha 7, it wasn't on the welcome screen, and if you didn't really know that you could theme the desktop, you immediately only think that your only two options is dark mode and light mode. At least that was the way I saw when I first tried the Cosmic desktop with Alpha 6. Once I moved on to Alpha 7 and I dug more into the settings, I realized that you could download themes or that you could customize and make your own themes, which is basically just color schemes. And I really like that they put it up front and center. That way the new users will know that they have more options than just dark and light theme. As you can see, just clicking at some of the options we have here, the color schemes could be basically unlimited. You can create your own color schemes, or you can download some pre-configured themes already. The next part is also a new implementation to the welcome screen. While in Alpha 7, you were able to recreate this configuration, this layout configuration. It wasn't presented to you at the welcome screen. Once you had your desktop completely set up, you had to go into the settings and configure your desktop this way. I really appreciate that they added this at the welcome screen as a one-click option, because when I installed Alpha 7 myself, the very first thing that I did once I noticed in the settings that I was able to disable the dock, I completely disabled the dock and moved my favorite applications to the panel and use the panel as is. Now you have the option to do it at the welcome screen as a one-click option, and it's a no-brainer. Thank you guys. And that's about it as far as the welcome screen. So we have already covered part of the installation and part of the welcome screen. And now we're going to move on to taking a look around the desktop and see what are some of the new things that Pop! OS 2404 has for us. Okay, so here we are at the System 76 Pop! OS 24.04 LTS beta download page. This page was just updated today, as today was the release, September 25th. And let's just go over it real quick, see what they have listed as new, what are some of your options, and then we'll have a look at the distro overall, just kind of go through the menu, see what some of the new changes that we noticed right away. Let's get started. As we already know, they announced Pop! OS last year. It's been a year to date, and we finally get the beta release. Hopefully, we get main release sometime soon. I'm really excited about Pop! OS and the Cosmic desktop. It's really a beautiful desktop. I know initially many people didn't like the color scheme or whatever, but the most important thing for most of us, I will think, is functionality. The Cosmic desktop is very clean. It's very minimalistic, but you can still customize it. Nobody can be mad at that, right? Not to compare with other desktop environments, but as we know, we have KDE, which is an amazing desktop, but it's a little heavy. It's got too many features that it's very complex. It's got too many things going on. And then we have the GNOME desktop, which is also a very cool desktop, very fresh and up to date, but that one lacks a lot of options. Customization has to be done with extensions. But anyways, moving on to Cosmic. People that are familiar with Pop OS, you know that you have two options of ISO. You have the regular ISO, which is for AMD and Intel processors without up-to-date NVIDIA card. As you can see here, this distribution would work for older NVIDIA cards. And your next option is obviously the ISO with NVIDIA drivers included. Moving on to the release notes. With the release notes, we can see the first thing says Pop! OS 24.04 LTS beta includes the new Cosmic desktop. So if we did mention it before, as you know, Pop! OS, the desktop Pop! OS is, I don't want to say separate from Cosmic, because at this moment, Pop! OS will not be running, going on 24.04 is not going to be running either GNOME, KDE, or anything else. And I don't think you'll have the option. I think your only option is going to be Cosmic, the Cosmic desktop. But just to clarify, you can use the Cosmic desktop with other distributions. So just because Pop! OS is tied to Cosmic desktop doesn't mean that you have to use Pop! OS. You will be able to download Cosmic, and I think for almost every other distribution, if I'm not mistaken. I know you can use it on Fedora. I know you can use it on CachyOS. But anyways, just to clarify, Pop! OS and Cosmic desktops are from the same company, but you could use Cosmic on your own distribution. Okay, and as always, this is a beta release, so expect some bugs. Definitely, even though we're really close to final release, there's still a lot of things that developers are probably working on and fixing for us, which is much appreciated. One other issue that you might have is if you are using it with a virtual machine. I'm not using it like that, so this doesn't apply to me. Maybe in the future if I try it, but right now I'm using it on one of my main machines, and I have no problems, so it's not something I need to worry about. Another thing that's going on is they replace some of the GNOME apps with the Cosmic apps. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, this has already been applied in Alpha 7, at least for Pop! OS. This might be referring to like other distributions. Maybe with other distributions, you were still using the GNOME files, the GNOME terminal, text editor, and the such. But with Pop! OS, I'm pretty sure this was already implemented. I don't remember how it was with Fedora, but currently, you'll have all the Cosmic applications instead of the GNOME applications. Moving on, the Pop Shop is also replaced by Cosmic Store. Pretty cool. Some of the key components of this new release: Cosmic Epoch 1 Beta. Obviously, like I mentioned before, Cosmic is a desktop environment that you'll be able to use with other distributions, not just Pop! OS, which is why they make it obvious that it's a separate thing from Pop! OS, if that makes sense. Updated kernel, Linux kernel 6.16.3. If I'm not mistaken, that's the most current stable kernel at the moment, so that's much appreciated. Mesa 25 and NVIDIA driver 580, as I mentioned, this is also the latest stable release. Very cool. And a few more things: libwayland and libdrm. So these are all some of the new changes and new features they have with the beta release. Some issues that they're displaying over here: drag and drop in files from Wayland apps to X11 apps is not currently supported. Understandable, especially given that X11 is phasing out with I know GNOME is phasing it out. I'm not sure if KDE is phasing it out, but I know GNOME is, and I'm pretty sure Cosmic is also going to phase it out. X11 is, I don't want to say it's expired, but it's I guess it's time for a change nowadays. Another issue on other distributions other than Pop! OS: Firefox may need a configuration flag. As I mentioned, you might end up having more bugs with other distributions than with Pop! OS itself. So that's why they're naming some of the issues here. And they're also saying when they will occur. We're very close to the final release, and some of the bugs that I'm looking at over here are not, you know, major bugs. So I know some of these. I'm probably guessing that some of these bugs appear even on stable releases of other distributions. I personally currently had some issues with because I'm running dual monitors and NVIDIA and Wayland. So I haven't seen many bugs with Alpha 7, and I don't expect to see too many with beta. But either way, it's still a beta release. So please, if you're going to install it on your system, make sure all your data is backed up, because you never know, right? You could end up losing your information, crashing your system, and then you'll be stuck, especially if it's your only machine. You don't want to go through any of that hassle. So I would suggest trying a virtual machine or with a live mode, and then make sure that most things are working, and then that's up to you, something that you want to do. So that's about it as far as what it's listed on the website. We are just going to have a quick look around the desktop ourselves and see if anything that's really stands out as new features. Okay, so here we are at the main screen. The way I chose my panel, I chose it like this because this is the first thing that I want to show as one of the new features. If you recall, we mentioned in the welcome screen that this wasn't an option with Alpha 7 or previous releases, but with beta you were given the option to have just everything in one panel. And for me, this works really well. I know it kind of resembles, the way Windows works or other distributions like Zorin has this option. You could have the dock, but they have their own implementation of an extension. And I really like it this way mainly because Pop! OS, as you know, they're a tiling desktop environment. So for me to have the dock, it kind of takes away from being able to tile your windows properly over here, right? Like if you had the dock, you could have it to hide or whatever, but I feel like it kind of takes away from the way you use your desktop. I know some people might prefer the dock, but I've used macOS, and even with macOS, I usually have it where it hides because I'm not a big fan. I just feel like it steals your real estate. So the way they implemented this here, even though it was a feature that you were able to customize it this way, I really appreciate that they added to the welcome screen so that newcomers can just implement it. So we can look at that in a second as far as how to customize it and make it look like this. But now you don't have to go through all that trouble of doing that, right? These are all have been the same way as even previous Pop! OS 22.04 and before. You have your icon for your launcher, you have your workspaces button, and then your applications button. And over here we have our favorite applications. Obviously these are, you're able to move them around. Even though this is the default setup, I actually like to do a couple more things to it. We're gonna have a look in a second. With the way the menu looks, everything looks the same with wireless as far as coming from older releases, Alpha 7 and whatnot. The next thing, Bluetooth, it looks the same. Everything here looks the same. Accessibility, I know they probably made some changes here because this is always very important, If we look at the desktop option, this looks the same as before. So we're just gonna kind of go through it a little bit and see what's new. Right here, these desktops have been there before. Everything here is the same. Appearance, this is the option where I was talking about as far as downloading themes. Now that they showed you at the welcome screen that you can have different color schemes, now you know that you can download themes. So right here you have the option to change your corner style. You can also change the way the spacing works. If you can see, if you go from compact to spacious, you have more space over here. Obviously, keep it comfortable. That's the intended spacing scheme. And then over here we have Windows management. With this, you can change the way your Windows tile. So if you notice here, if I increase this, this is the color at the border around the window. I like to keep it at 1, and then the gaps too, I like to keep them smaller. I like as much real estate as I can. Over here, you can change the fonts. This has all been here before. Moving on to the next thing, the panel. Okay, so the panel has a lot of cool new features. Some of these were already in Alpha 7. You have the option to hide it, change where you want it. I like it at the top. I don't like the panels at the bottom. I like the top. Anyways, if you have multiple displays, you can show the panel in every display. If you want to have it as a floating, almost like a floating panel, or you want to just have it edge to edge. A couple of the features that have been here before. This is the part of the menu that I really like, because you're able to remove some of these features and implement others. So for example, for me, I don't need the launcher button to be there, because I know that with the super key, it comes up. So I don't need it to be there. The workspace button also, I don't need it to be there, because I know the combination and it's just kind of taking space, right? The application button, I like to keep it there. I like to keep it at the very far left, but my app tray, I like to move it to the center. So if you move it over here, you can see you have the option to put it in the center, and that's exactly where I like it. That's where I want it to be. I don't like it over here on this side for whatever reason. This is where I like it, right? You have the option to remove this minimize Windows stuff, and then from here you have these other options which controls your notifications. You can remove or leave them. It's up to you. For me, I like to remove the date, move the date to the very end, and keep it in the corner. And that's pretty much it. Moving on to the next thing. You have obviously the dock, like I mentioned earlier. You initially with Alpha 7, it was on by default. Now they have turned it off if you pick that option. I have it off, and I don't plan to turn it on ever again. Windows management, I don't really use this. This was all the same too as before. And then your workspaces also. This, you have the option to pick how you want your workspaces to move, either vertically or horizontally, and then multi-monitor behavior. If you have many monitors, this is right up your alley. Those are some of the new features, really. Everything else is the same as Alpha 7, other than tweaks to the interface, I believe. Unfortunately, with the release notes, there's nothing that really details the things that every single thing that they changed. But from my experience, coming from like Alpha 6, it is looking a lot nicer. There are a lot more features implemented, and just the interface overall is a lot more snappier. There's a lot of things here that I don't really use. Over here, obviously I like to remove the date, and I like to have my 24 hours and region. Obviously depends where you're at, and then system accounts, your users, your about. Let's see if you're able to change this before. Okay, you still can't. So with GNOME and KDE, if you click on your profile picture, you have the option to, they have some defaults, but with Cosmic, they don't have that. Even, when I tried with Alpha 6, and I just kind of thought maybe Alpha 7, but no. And I figured maybe beta. They might give us some defaults later in time, but it doesn't matter. You can set up your own, right? So as we know, Cosmic is a tiling desktop. My opinion on that is that I love the way System 76 implements tiling. Coming from Pop! OS 22.04, It's always been amazing. The way I see Cosmic, to me, is kind of like a combination of, it's like the sweet spot of Gnome and Hyperland, if that makes sense. They have a beautifully implemented tiling system. The tiling is just works flawlessly. No issues. It's very automatic. You can have it on with the push of a button or turn it off if you don't want to use it. Well, all right, guys, and with that we end this overview of the new Pop! OS 24.04 beta release. Very eager to see what the final release is going to bring for us. Hopefully, it doesn't take another year to see it. Hopefully, fingers crossed by the end of the year, but if not, hopefully early 2026. This refresh desktop it was due for us. We've had GNOME and KDE for decades. A few others have tried to make it, but I think Cosmic is going to be something that most users will want to use, the alternative. So very excited to see what comes next, and that's the end for this video.